Imagine a place older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge, a place built not by kings or empires, but by small groups of hunter-gatherers who, according to the history books, weren't supposed to be able to build anything. Yet on a lonely hill in southeastern Turkey lies Göbekli Tepe, the world's first known temple. Its stones are so massive, its carvings so detailed, and its age so unbelievable that it has forced scholars to rethink the entire story of civilization. For centuries, the site was just another mound in the landscape. Locals grazed sheep on it, farmers plowed near it, and archaeologists who passed by in the 1960s dismissed it as nothing more than an abandoned medieval cemetery. The hill's name, Göbekli Tepe, or Potbelly Hill, hinted at nothing extraordinary. But in 1994, German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt recognized that the scattered fragments of carved limestone weren't medieval at all. They were something much older, something the world had never seen. When Schmidt began to dig, massive T-shaped pillars emerged from the earth. They stood in circles, some towering nearly 20 feet tall, weighing as much as 20 tons. Unlike crude stones, these were carefully carved, smoothed, and arranged in deliberate patterns. They formed giant enclosures, stone rings that once stood as gathering places for rituals whose meaning is lost to time. Etched into them were animals both dangerous and revered: lions, boars, vultures, scorpions, foxes, snakes. The detail was stunning, as if the ancient builders wanted their stone creatures to live forever. But the true shock came with the dating. Tests revealed Göbekli Tepe to be nearly 12,000 years old, dating to around 9,600 BC. That's 7,000 years before the Great Pyramid, 5,000 years before Stonehenge. It belongs to an age when humans were thought to be nomads, moving in small groups, surviving on hunting and foraging. And yet, here was proof that those same people were capable of monumental construction, abstract art, and complex organization. How could they have done it? Each pillar weighs more than a fully loaded truck. Without wheels, pulleys, or domesticated animals, how were these stones cut, moved, and lifted upright? Archaeologists suggest wooden sledges, ropes, and sheer manpower, but coordinating such an effort would have required leadership, planning, and a shared vision that hunter-gatherer societies supposedly didn't have. To raise Göbekli Tepe, they needed hundreds of people working in harmony, fed and supplied for months at a time. This wasn't a small camp of nomads. This was society in action, long before society was supposed to exist. And then there are the carvings. These weren't random decorations. Some appear to represent constellations. The most famous example, the Vulture Stone, shows a vulture holding a circular object surrounded by other strange symbols. Some researchers argue it records a cosmic event, a comet strike around 10,800 BC. That date coincides with the Younger Dryas, a mysterious cooling event that plunged the world back into near glacial conditions just as it was emerging from the Ice Age. This disaster may have wiped out entire populations and sparked myths of great floods and lost worlds. If Göbekli Tepe preserves a memory of that catastrophe, it isn't just a temple. It's a message from survivors of an almost unimaginable disaster. The mystery only deepens when you realize Göbekli Tepe was not destroyed by time. It was buried on purpose. Around 8,000 BC, thousands of tons of rubble and dirt were hauled in to cover the enclosures completely. The work was deliberate, layer upon layer, sealing the site as if its builders wanted to erase it or preserve it. Why would anyone spend centuries creating such a masterpiece, only to hide it? Some suggest it was ritual closure, an intentional act to end the use of the site. Others think it was a time capsule, a way of protecting sacred knowledge for future generations. And there are darker possibilities. Maybe they buried it because of what it represented, knowledge too dangerous to leave exposed. This act of burial worked. For thousands of years, Gobekli Tepe lay hidden, shielded from wind and rain, waiting to be rediscovered. When it finally was, it overturned the basic assumptions of history. We were taught that farming came first, then permanent settlements, and only then did people build temples and monuments. But Gobekli Tepe flips that sequence. It suggests religion came first. People may have gathered here for ceremonies and only afterward invented farming to support those gatherings. That would mean belief, ritual, worship, shared imagination was the spark that created civilization, not crops, not cities, faith. The implications are staggering. If true, it means humans organized themselves around meaning before survival, that our desire for connection with the sacred, or at least with each other through ritual, was stronger than the instinct to simply gather food. Civilization, then, wasn't born from necessity, but from the human need for stories, symbols, and shared purpose. And what symbols they left us. Each enclosure tells a different story. Pillars decorated with foxes may have symbolized cunning or survival. Vultures might represent death and rebirth, guiding souls to the afterlife. Snakes could symbolize danger, knowledge, or transformation. Some scholars believe the carvings are a kind of language, not writing as we know it, but a shared symbolic code, a first step toward recording ideas. In that sense, Gobekli Tepe might not just be the first temple. It could be the birthplace of communication itself. But the questions don't stop there. Why here? Why this hill, in this part of the world? Some point out that southeastern Turkey is close to the Fertile Crescent, the cradle of agriculture. Wheat, barley, and lentils were first domesticated in this region. Could the gatherings at Gobekli Tepe have encouraged people to begin farming, simply to feed the masses who came to worship? If so, then the site wasn't just a temple. It was the reason humans stopped wandering and started building permanent societies. Others see Gobekli Tepe as proof of something more. Alternative historians argue it's evidence of a lost advanced civilization, one that flourished before the end of the Ice Age and vanished in the global cataclysm. These ideas are controversial, but they resonate with those who feel the standard timeline of history doesn't account for sites like this. Then there are even wilder theories, that the builders were guided by knowledge from beyond Earth, visitors who taught humanity skills it shouldn't have had. Mainstream archaeology rejects these ideas, but even they admit Gobekli Tepe forces them to question assumptions. And Gobekli Tepe isn't alone. Just 30 miles away at Karahan Tepe, archaeologists are finding similar pillars and carvings, suggesting a culture that extended across the region. These sites may be part of a network of sacred centers, evidence of a civilization that stretched farther and lasted longer than we ever imagined. If more are uncovered, and they will be, it could transform our understanding of prehistory entirely. Think of the comparisons. Stonehenge, built 5,000 years ago, is considered one of Europe's greatest ancient monuments. The Great Pyramid, 4,500 years old, still stuns with its precision. But Gobekli Tepe is twice as old as Stonehenge, twice as old as the pyramids, and built by people who were supposed to lack every tool and technique required. It stands not just as the oldest monument, but as the greatest contradiction in archaeology. So what is Gobekli Tepe? Was it a temple to gods we'll never know? A star map etched in stone? A message from survivors of a world-ending event? Or the relic of a civilization erased from memory, deliberately hidden until we were ready to rediscover it? Every stone, every carving, every circle of pillars seems to whisper that our past is stranger and more complicated than we've ever been told. When you look at Gobekli Tepe, you realize we are not the first people to wonder about the stars, about gods, about where we come from. Those questions haunted our ancestors 12,000 years ago, and in their search for answers, they carved this riddle into stone and buried it in the earth. It is up to us to uncover its meaning. One thing is certain. The neat story in the textbooks that history marched in a straight line from primitive tribes to advanced civilizations is no longer enough. Gobekli Tepe proves that human history is a puzzle full of missing pieces, and with every new discovery, the picture becomes stranger, deeper, and more mysterious. Comment, like, and subscribe for more ancient mysteries and lost history uncovered.